All right, welcome to the Good Lie and the Greater Good. So, I was having a conversation with my co-host a while back, and he just wants content for the content gods, and I tend to agree with him on that regard. But it's tough for me to kind of get the news to cooperate. Stuff that I want to talk about when I want to talk about it, versus like a slow news cycle is always going to be a slow news cycle, and sometimes they're going to be good stuff in the news that I just don't really see the point or want to talk about. And then there's other things where I kind of want to talk about them, but they're not in the news. And this is one of them. So I have borrowed my co-host Thomas Sowell, The Basic Economics. I've been reading it, and it's a really light read. I'm enjoying it. It's not really saying anything profound to me. Stuff I didn't already know, except for the fact there's a lot of examples and a lot of things where I didn't know that fact. And in this case, like one of the things that has been bothering me for a while, and I'll eventually get to talking about unions, but in this case, we're talking about minimum wage, and I think minimum wage is stupid. Thomas Sowell actually has a point in his book where he says that people aren't stupid, politicians aren't stupid, they rationalize things. I would be able to split hairs a little bit on the definition. His definition of stupid and my definition of stupid may or may not be the same thing. But again, I will talk and say that if you have an inability to negotiate with the future, that you don't understand that actions have consequences, and you have to be able to properly predict what those consequences are, you may be stupid. But that would be my definition of stupid, and it may not be Thomas Sowell's definition of stupid. They may be two different things. So what minimum wage is, it's for people who have jobs at the expense that those that do not. They don't actually help anybody else other than give a false sense of security to the people that have them. It doesn't actually do anything for people that don't have jobs, because they're going to be less likely to find them, because causes the employer to hire less workers and invest more in capital away from workers, like machines and stuff like that, to get the same productivity done. It also forces employers to try and get a little bit more blood out of that stone with the workers that they have, instead of hiring more workers to do more labor, right? So it's their workers will need to be more effective at what they do with less workers to go around and get stuff done. So if an employer needs to dig ditches, he's going to hire less workers to dig the same amount of ditches that he would with more workers, if that makes sense, right? So I also have here in my notes, it also makes the human worker need to be more productive. I just talked about that, i.e., work harder, um, and let's see, it makes up for the loss of human productivity. So again, like that's why they go out and they hire capital. In fact, minimum wage will alter the business that the owner has intended, by shifting away from human work, like I just said, to something else. So what a business is and how it functions is going to change regardless of whether or not we like it or not. Something is what it is. It's not what we want it to be, right? And again, like the biggest thing when we look at minimum wage, and I'm looking at my notes, is equilibrium. This goes back to like some of the stuff on like physics and the immune system, stuff like that. The equilibrium, every system tries to find a place of equilibrium, and it's always going to be pulled in the direction of more chaos or more order. What minimum wage does is it just causes stagnation within the system, right? We can't find equilibrium. So it's going to stagnate wages both upwards and downwards. Like some workers may get paid more than what they should, because of minimum wage, but without competition, the other wages won't equalize upward, right? So someone who could be or would be getting paid less, that gets paid more because of minimum wage. There's also going to be someone on the other side of that gets paid more than they should, because no one actually can figure out what the market should be setting for all the prices of all the work that's out there. We just throw out blanket minimum wage, which brings me to what I was saying. There's a psychological component to this that doesn't have as much to do with economics or even politics, for that matter. But when a society sets a standard that this is the minimum work, right? That job is seen as the bottom of the barrel. That's kind of the point of the good old thumbnail that's going to be going on with this video. That like when we hear someone has a minimum wage job, we tend to think of them as being like at the bottom rung of society. So instead of allowing the market to set the price of wages upwards and downwards, so we can view someone's worth within society, and that's a little bit different when it comes to like looking at the worth of money within a society, because yes, we do tend to view someone's worth when it comes to money, but again, money is for lack of an intensive person, it's the lie that we tell ourselves, the story that we tell ourselves when it comes to the value of someone's time. So the more money I have, the more that I and society view my worth, versus the less money that I have, the less that I view my value, the transformation of my time into some type of medium, which is money, right? So when you tell someone that they have a minimum wage job, they have no reason, no incentive to improve themselves. Like they are the bottom of the barrel, and it doesn't matter what they do, as opposed to someone that theoretically would be making less money than minimum wage in a society that they have to negotiate their price, because the better that they get at their job, the more that they can see themselves having self-worth, more self-value, and they can negotiate for higher wages. And against other jobs will have to be negotiated down because they have less value in society, or relative to the business. And on top of that, you have let's see, what was I thinking? You have the problem that some jobs should not be getting paid a wage from the employer. They should either be independent contractors, or they should be working off a gratuity, some other arrangement goes on that goes back to like the government getting involved with contracts between people. The government or third parties should not be sabotaging contracts. And by the government setting minimum wage, that's exactly what they're doing. They're interfering with two people's ability to interact with each other, and kind of guess what they are going to do. Like what relationship that they want to have with themselves. And now you have the government getting involved with that. And again, like I talked about, it destroys incentive. It alters the level of risk, because things in life should have risk. I should have the same ability to succeed as I do to fail. That should be my choice. That's what freedom is. And again, the other thing that minimum wage is going to cause is it's going to cause a certain amount of stagnation within the industries. But like I talked about earlier, it's not just that it causes stagnation within the industry. It actually alters what something is into something else, because you have to have some type of consequence for an action. Good old Thomas Sowell saying that there are no solutions, there are already trade-offs. You have to figure out what the trade-off is. So what is the trade-off to having a minimum wage? And this is what I want to end with. The funny thing is, the people on the left, or even in general, just all morons out there that support minimum wage, they don't understand that minimum wage is going to be, by definition, racist and sexist and whatever ism else that you want to throw out there. And the reason behind that is everybody has prejudices, and I should be allowed to use my prejudices sometimes for my advantage or against myself. That's freedom, risk and reward. So in this case, with minorities and women and whatever else that you want to throw out there, the blacks and the browns and all those people, with minimum wage, if someone believes that within society they have less value, that gives them a better negotiating position, because they will do a job for less money than someone else. So I can go out there and I go, well, I would normally pay a white worker more money, but since I view you as less valuable, black person, I will give you this job. So it allows someone to actually pull themselves by the bootstraps by taking a job at less value than what would normally be expected by other groups within that thing. So the same thing with women. You set a minimum wage, and an employer that goes, well, I see women as less valuable, so I will pay them less than market value for what they do. Some woman that takes that job now has a job. Somebody else that, like, quote unquote, that white, supremacy nation, you turn around and that white person doesn't have a job because they're not willing to take the risk at doing a job less than market value. And that's what minimum wage does. It causes all that stagnation. It actually will work against those people that are, in that less, quote unquote, power dynamic position of Marxism light, and going on in the world. So these are all the things that are going on with minimum wage. And again, like, you want to be in a position when you negotiate with someone else to have things that they want. And if you don't, then you don't have a good position to negotiate. You might as well just not play the game at that point. Like, and that's what minimum wage does, is it takes the employer and the individual, and it doesn't allow them to play the game of negotiating with each other to figure out if they want to interact with each other. And again, later on, I'll eventually come back to like unions and some of the worker protections that are out there that are actually damaging everybody's ability to have the greater potential for happiness within our society. Because again, and this is where I would agree with Thomas Sowell, is that, like, politicians, they are playing a different game in order to maintain power over everybody else. And again, by having power over someone else, that allows them to stay in power. Good old 1984, the party seeks power for the sake of power. And in this case, if they tell you that minimum wages are good, you should probably think twice about that.